This is my third Tesla since 2019. I started off with the Model S, probably the best smile eater out of all the Teslas, and I think it still looks fantastic today. I then moved on to a Tesla Model 3, much better built, much improved technology as well, and probably much more suited to British roads. Our roads here are a lot smaller and narrower. And then I traded that in and I bought myself a Model Y. And the reason being is the family were getting bigger, we've got teenagers now, and they were just getting a little bit too cramped in the back of the Model 3. Because I was coming from a long-range Tesla Model 3, which had fairly good performance, I went for the Model Y performance. And I love this car. However, I don't think it's the best choice for most people out of the 4 versions of the Tesla Model Y you can buy. And I know what you're thinking. You go on Tesla's website and there are 3 versions of the Tesla Model Y. I'm going to talk to you about a 4th version as well, which I think may be the sweet spot for a lot of people. So by the end of this video, you will know which Tesla Model Y, which version of the Tesla Model Y is right for you. Let's get cracking. So let's start with the standard range rear-wheel drive Model Y. And this is the underdog of the range. And I think it shouldn't be really, because in my experience, having rear-wheel drive, and it does handle, I mean, unless you live in a place where you need 4-wheel drive, do you really need 4-wheel drive? The Model Y rear-wheel drive, in my experience, handles the best. And the reason I say that is because the front end is a lot lighter, which means as it's just steering, it has a more of a playful feel for it. It's also the lowest powered version of the Model Y, which does seem like an odd statement to say why I think this might be a good pick for many people. But the reason I say that is because you can have a lot of fun with it without risking your license. To give you an example, I had a Porsche Boxster, a 3.2 litre Porsche Boxster, which is a very good car. Prior to that, I had a very humble MGF, both mid-engined sporty cars. The Boxster was far superior to the MGF. However, I could use most of the power, most of the time in the MGF, not go above the speed limit, and I actually had more fun driving that version than I did the Porsche. And that might be the same for you in the rear-wheel drive Model Y. It also has an LFP battery, and that means you can charge it to 100%. It likes to be charged to 100% every day, compared to the long-range version, which likes to be charged to 80% every day, unless you're going on a road trip where you might charge it to 90 or 100%. So if you look at the 2 day by day, which is the standard range car that charged to 100% and the long range charged to 80%, there's not very much difference at all, if any, in your daily range. There are some downsides though. So all the cars will charge on AC at 11 kilowatts. I'm in the UK where we have single phase electricity in most houses. So all 3 will charge at 7.4 kilowatts. That's the most you can get down one. It's too much for this video. So they all charge the same at home. However, when you're out on the road, the rear wheel drive version, the standard range, does charge slower. So the performance and the long range will peak at 250 kilowatts, or can peak at 250 kilowatts. Now it's worth noting that when you hit 250 kilowatts, I've seen it a few times, it stays there for seconds and then it starts to taper down. With the rear wheel drive, that peaks at 170 kilowatts. So if you're on a road trip and you're stopping sooner with the rear wheel drive version than you would do with the long range or the performance, and then it's taking you a little bit longer to charge, that might be a factor for you. But if you're doing the sort of road trips where you're perhaps only stopping once on that trip, it might not make quite as much difference as you think it will. You're talking perhaps minutes onto your journey time. The other thing to consider is how well it will charge on a cold battery. So this is unlikely to happen, but if you were to wake up with an empty battery, take it to a supercharger, you will be disappointed with how fast that LFP battery charges compared to the lithium-ion batteries. Now they will charge slower as well because they're not warmed up, they're not preconditioned, but it will be noticeably different on the LFP battery. However, this is unlikely to happen because what normally happens is you get in your car, it's full, you drive for say 3 or 4 hours, the battery is then preconditioned and you hit the charger and you get really good charge speeds. So as much as that is something to consider, how often is it really going to happen? Lastly is the sound system in the rear wheel drive. Historically, the standard range cars from Tesla had a lower quality sound system. Still very good, but just not quite as good as the long range and the performance. When I purchased my Model Y 9 months ago, they all had, in the UK as well, I'm in the UK, which might be different to your market, they all had the premium sound system. So one of the reasons why you perhaps wouldn't opt for the standard range was because you might want the top end stereo system. That isn't a factor right now in the UK. It may be a factor later on because they've just refreshed the Model 3. If you look at those versions, the long range version has a better sound system than the standard range. So I would say that it's subject to change, and just double check that before you order your Tesla. And it's worth noting for any Tesla video you watch on YouTube, because if you're watching older Model Y videos, the people who talk about those will be talking to you perhaps about harsh suspension. Tesla have greatly improved the suspension over the last couple of years, so that may not be a factor. You talk to me about my car's parking sensors or lack of parking sensors. It uses camera vision now when you're parking. When I first got my car, I would tell you that this was quite a considerable step backwards than having just normal parking sensors. However, 9 months later, several software upgrades later, I think it's actually a very good system. And I mean, I wouldn't go as far as to say it's better, but it certainly is comparable to just having parking sensors. Next is the long range. And I think the long range is a safe pair of hands for most people, especially if this is your first family EV. The reason why I say that is for daily driving, you've got 80% charge, which is loads of range. And if you do a road trip, then you've got the extra 20% of range for longer journeys. We regularly drive from the Dordogne, which is kind of towards the south of France, to the east of England. When we leave there fully charged, we drive for 4 hours before we make our first stop. We then stop for 40 minutes because we're ready for a meal break. By the time we finished our meal break, we jump back in the car, it's full or nearly full, probably full, and we'll drive for another 3.5, 4 hours before we need to stop again. And that works perfectly for us. The next thing about the Tesla Model Y long range is the performance. So it has a 0 to 60 of 4.8 seconds, which is really impressive, especially for a car of its size. And when I talk about the fourth version available of the Tesla Model Y, I'm talking about a variant of the long range. And this is something that I took advantage of in my Tesla Model 3 long range. And that is, once you've got used to the power and you feel like, I don't know, 0 to 60 in 4.8 seconds might not be enough for you, you can then pay Tesla $1,500 and buy the acceleration boost, and that will take the 0 to 60 down from 4.8 seconds to 4.2 seconds, 0 to 60. And I know what you're thinking, why would I pay £1,500 or $1,500 for an acceleration boost? It's cheaper than buying a new car. If you're the sort of person like me who does tire of vehicles quickly, keeping it for a year, pressing a button, and literally 5 minutes later, your car is a lot more powerful, might just save you from swapping that car to a new one when you didn't have to. The next consideration as to why the long range might be the car for you is what it doesn't have. So it doesn't have the largest wheels. You can pick, I think they're 19s or 20-inch wheels. The 19s will be more comfortable than the 20s. If you go for the 19s, I don't like the wheel trims that come standard. You can pop those off and you can buy something very cheaply that looks like the performance or the other set of wheels you can get for the car. And it doesn't have the sport suspension either. So if you've got normal size wheels and you haven't got sport suspension, I think you'll find that the Model Y long range, when you test drive one, is actually a very comfortable place to be. Last option, and what I have obviously, is the performance model. And I love the way the calipers look, the wheels look, the spoiler looks, and call me kind of, maybe it's because I'm getting old, I don't know, but I prefer to keep my car stock. So I appreciate that you can get the standard range or the long range version, and you can buy like clip-on brake calipers and you can buy spoilers. I think if you make your car more attractive to thieves, there's a chance that your insurance company may not like that if your car gets stolen. So one of the reasons I have the Performance is that I haven't changed a thing on this car, and I won't change a thing on this car, and it's insured as it needs to be for what it is. The Performance, so 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds in a family vehicle. Slip roads and overtaking on motorways are probably the only time, like my Boxster, that I really get to use that power. I'm quite a slow driver normally, but I do like to have lots of power in like the 1 or 2% of driving when I do use it. The power on this car just feels endless. If you get a nice clear road and you stop with a car full of people and you floor it, they will all have huge grins on their face. I don't think you'll ever get tired of the power, and I can't see a time when I would want more power in this car than what it has already. It's just, if you like power, it's your car. The Tesla Model Y Performance also has track mode, which I've never used and I doubt I will ever use, but it does have its downsides. And like my Boxster, it is very difficult to use that power in day-to-day driving. It's very difficult in many cases to use more power than the standard range car's got. In addition to that, with those big 21-inch wheels, and I think they look the best. They feel the wheel arches the best. They do add to the harshness of the ride. In addition to that, you have sports suspension as well. So it is a firm ride. When it comes to efficiency, you do lose a bit, especially if you drive it spiritedly. On our long road trips, I don't really notice a difference because generally my bladder will need to stop before the car needs to stop in all cases. So where you might get 300 miles out of the long range version on a lovely sunny day, I don't know, you might be looking at say 280, 290, I feel maybe 290 on the Performance. There is a difference, but I mean, it is, in my experience, it's negligible. I think the biggest difference compared to the long range might be insurance for you. So I'd perhaps get a quote for the Performance and the long range if you're a little bit tight on the Performance. Now, one of the reasons why I got rid of my Model 3 long range was because I should have bought the Performance. And I'm gonna ask you two questions now. If you're on the fence between the long range and the Performance, these two questions will be the decider for you. So the first one is, do you have a flagship phone already? And when they bring the new phone out, you look at the upgrades, decide that they're just incremental upgrades, and yet you buy it anyway. My next question is, are you quite a hard sale? If you go into shop to buy something, is it difficult to sell something to you unless it's got the words Pro, Plus, or Max at the end? I can see you. Yeah. So if you've answered yes to those questions, just get the Performance. Don't do what I did with my Model 3 and buy the long range and then the acceleration boost and still wish you'd bought the Performance. Just buy the Performance. If you're a sensible adult, and you've answered no to those questions, then probably the long range is for you. And if you don't do lots of road trips or need the extra range occasionally, then have lots of fun in the rear wheel drive, the standard range version. Finally, and to throw a spanner in the works, is Juniper. So they've just refreshed the Tesla Model 3. So it's now called the Tesla Model 3, codenamed Highland. I live in the UK, so there's quite a few of these about now. I probably see, if I go out on the road, I mean, nearly every other car seems to be a Tesla. I probably see one Highland a day. And unless you know, you can't really tell the difference. But it is an improved car over the outgoing Tesla Model 3. So if you're the sort of person who wants the very latest, Juniper appears to be around the corner. So that will be the refreshed Model Y. It could be 2024, it could be 2025, who knows with Tesla. If you're not in any rush to get this car, then maybe wait. But with Tesla, I mean, generally I'd say you can wait a long time and it might not ever happen, or it might happen later than you think. So I'm very happy with my car. When Juniper comes out, I absolutely will not be upgrading to it until my current lease deal ends on my car. I don't feel the need. Also, with the Tesla Model Ys at the moment, at least in the UK, there are some fantastic lease deals. And this happened with the Tesla Model 3 as well. Just as the current run was coming to an end, the lease deals on the Model 3 became really attractive. However, when the Highland came out, those lease deals seem to have disappeared. So my friend was looking at a long range Tesla Model 3 and I think it was something like £400 a month to lease. When the Highland came out, that went up by about $250 a month, which was a bit of a surprise for him, and he ended up buying a Mercedes instead. If you've enjoyed this video, then I think you'll enjoy the ones I'm gonna put here. And if you're not a subscriber, don't forget to subscribe as well. And until next time, see you soon.